All right, we are live in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 123, Swanson versus Ortega in Fresno, California, man. So we got a pretty decent fight card in front of us here. Nice little fight night, awesome main event. Um, Prelims and the rest of the main card are filled with some good fights, filled with some bad fights, filled with some opportunity. And speaking of opportunity, man, I did manage to finally snap that cold streak. I actually profited 5 units at UFC 218. I had 4 units on Felice, 4 units on Tisha. I had a little parlay with Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Dominic Reyes. Only losing bet, I went 3-for-1. I lost on Drakkar Close, and that was a weird fight, man. But we're looking to keep it going, man. I got 3 plays for this card. Honestly, man, I'm not really even tempted by anything else. It's just the 3 plays, and I like it a lot. I balanced out the bets to where I only need 2 out of 3 to cash, and I have a profitable night. And I definitely think that's going to happen, man, because I like my 3 plays here a lot. They're just 3 straight plays, 2 favorites, 1 dog. Of course, we're going to be talking about that in a second here. Going to be breaking down the entire 13 fight card. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to get to with you guys. On my day off today, pretty fucking nice, man. I've been so busy with shit. I haven't had time to just sit down and relax in a while. And honestly, doing these videos is one of my favorite parts of the week. So I'm excited to talk these fights. Just got back from the Lightning game last night. Go Bolts. They crush the Islanders. And the Islanders are a good team, man. But I'm not here to talk about hockey. I'm here to talk about the fights. So, starting off with the first fight of the night, and I pray that Best Fight Odds doesn't fuck with me this time. First fight of the night, we got Antonio Braga Neto plus 210 taking on Trevin Giles minus 250. Now, man, pre-tape and just my initial thoughts when I first saw the fight get announced, I was all over Trevin Giles here, man. I mean, he impressed me a lot in his UFC debut. Up a weight class, short notice, looked athletic, looked good, looked technical. Kid could have some promise, and he's coming in here against Antonio Braga Neto, who we haven't seen in, I want to say, about 3 years now. His last fight was a split decision loss to Clint Hester, but before that, in his UFC debut, he was able to submit Anthony Smith. Then again, Anthony Smith, not really known for his jiu-jitsu, more known for his striking and his size, so he was able to get Anthony in a leg lock and finish the job there. He was a minus 250 favorite. People expected that out of him, but man, I think he's the big underdog here for a reason. So obviously the 3-year layoff, and Trevin Giles, this is a guy who I think can work his way up the ranks in the middleweight division, where middleweight's real stacked when it comes to the top 10. Not really much past that. I can easily see this kid making it to the 10 to 20 spot by the end of 2018, possibly. I do think he is eventually going to take that first loss. Everybody has to take it, but I don't think it happens here against Antonio Braga Neto. I think Trevin Giles keeps it on the feet where he wants to keep it, and he's going to outstrike this guy, maybe even finish him. I'm going to say Trevin Giles wins this fight via stoppage, and I'll say 3rd round TKO for the sophomore appearance for Trevin Giles. When it comes to DraftKings, I have absolutely not touched it one bit so far. I looked at the salaries, but I haven't dove in and made my lineups last week. I also killed it on DraftKings last week, so that was nice too. But kind of going to give you guys an idea of who I'm going to be playing a lot of. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter. Probably some point before the fights on Saturday, I'm going to tweet out who I'm going real big on and who I'm probably going to be staying away from. But probably going to have a good amount of Trevin Giles here. I feel like he definitely wins, and I feel like he definitely finishes. Well, not definitely finishes, but this is a strong case for a win here. So moving on, man. Real interesting. I have a bet in the next 3 fights here. My 3 plays are within the first 4 fights of the night, so it's going to be a very early sweat for me, and I'm either going to be really happy enjoying the rest of this card, or I'm going to be pretty upset. But man, I know I'm going to be pretty happy because we got Dobby Ramos minus 360 taking on Chris Gritzmacher plus 300. Now, if you haven't seen, Dobby Ramos, his line has doubled. He opened up at minus 180. He's now minus 360. And I think that minus 360 is absolutely correct now. To give props to Daniel Levy, along with myself, we were able to snipe that very early line. I know he max bet it 5 units. I don't. I thought about putting 5 units on it, but I just wanted to keep it a little bit lighter because I know there was going to be a couple other things I wanted to play on this card, and even possibly a Invicta play because there's a fight I've had my eye on really hard for, and still waiting for that Invicta line to come out. But man, just 3 units. So I put 3 units on Dobby Ramos here to win like 1.6 something, somewhere around there at minus 180. Real happy I got in on that line early, and now that it's minus 360. I do wish I would have max bet that at 5 units. Is what it is, though. I'm still going to be cashing here. So what's the deal here with old Dobby Ramos and Chris Gritzmacher? So first of all, I guess I'll start with Gritzmacher. Gritzmacher is, first of all, he's a 145 pounder, and I guess he just is too lazy to cut the weight now because he's really not even that big of a 145 pounder. I mean, you put him next to Max Holloway. Max Holloway dwarfs this dude. So I don't know what the deal is with him coming back up to 155 pounds. Maybe he just feels like that's a better weight class for him because he does have a win in the UFC at 155 pounds. He is 1-1 in the UFC. He beat that dude from Spain, Abner Laveras. But man, that dude Abner Laveras is a jobber to say the least. But he did get smoked by Chaz Skelly. It wasn't even close. Gritzmacher looked terrible in that fight. And really, man, his hands just aren't there. His wrestling's okay. The jiu-jitsu is okay. He's just kind of a trash can, man. So on the other equation, you got Dobby Ramos here making his sophomore appearance in the UFC. Actually, his last fight was at 170 pounds. So we got a guy coming down from 170 to 155 and a guy coming up from 145 to 155. Difference is Dobby Ramos is a 155 pounder. He's a real stocky, big dude. Chris Gritzmacher he's a 145 pounder, man. So this is a 155 pounder who fought at 170, fighting pretty much a 145 pounder at 155. And man, even that welterweight debut in his last fight, short notice, keep in mind, against Sergio Moraes, who's like a top 30 welterweight guy, real experienced, tough guy. He went 3 rounds with him, and not only did he go 3 rounds with him, man, I could see an argument for Dobby Ramos winning that fight. I thought it could have gone either way. Looked good. His striking is coming along. Obviously, that's not his forte. He is a very highly regarded Brazilian jiu-jitsu player, has some of the best BJJ in the UFC, probably like one of the top 15, top 10 guys. And man, this is a tough fight for old Grits because I feel like he's outgunned on the fight for sure. Dobby has the more firepower. I feel like he throws the more volume and the cleaner shots. So he's got the feet for sure. If Grits wants to go ahead and use his takedowns, because I'm sure he's probably going to want to take the fight down to the ground eventually when Dobby Ramos is just lighting him up on the feet. Grits has got to be real careful on the ground, man. He's playing with hot lava there. Dobby Ramos is a very skilled BJJ grappler, and I could absolutely see him pulling off something. Grits going in for a sloppy takedown, just Dobby easy guillotine. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Chris kind of just has to make this ugly. He has to make it a brawl. He has to swing bombs, hope for the best, push Dobby up against the cage, try to kill some time, steal some rounds, but I don't see it happening here, man. Dobby Ramos is the much more superior martial artist in a lot of aspects, and I'm minus 180. I love that line a lot, so 3 units on Dobby Ramos. My official prediction, I'm going to say a second round submission. So moving on here, man, we got Alejandro Perez plus 175 taking on Yuri Alcantara minus 210. If you guys have been paying attention to me for a while, you know I like to bet Yuri. I bet Yuri almost all of his fights. It's worked out sometimes. It hasn't worked out sometimes. But now we got Alejandro Perez in front of us here, who Alejandro Perez is no, he has a lot of good qualities. He has some bad qualities, but for sure, he's one of the better guys to ever come out of that tough Latin scene. He's picked up some good wins over decent competition in the UFC. So you look at his body of work in the UFC. He makes his debut. He beats Quinones by decision, who Quinones is a guy who's improved a lot. He had that fight against Patrick Williams where he had to take that first UFC loss, I guess. Patrick Williams, I mean, in that first minute, he's a real explosive, tough guy to deal with. If Alejandro would have survived those first 2 minutes, he for sure would have finished Patrick Williams. But Patrick was able to, rock him hard and choke him. Lost the fight there, but ever since then, man, he's been undefeated in 4 fights. He had the finish over Scott Jorgensen, who Scott Jorgensen's way past his prime, man, but still a tough vet nonetheless. He was able to smoke Ian Entwistle. Ian Entwistle's an idiot. He had the draw with Albert Morales. I thought Morales slightly edged that one, but it could have gone either way or a draw. It was just such a close fight. And Albert's a tough dude, man. And then he gets a good win with Andre Sukumtoth, who's a real sharp striker, man. So he was able to get a decision over him, man. He's able to win these sneaky decisions and keep it closer than it should be. The Alejandro was a guy that the judges favor. He throws volume. He's a skilled guy, man. So it's tough. I feel like Ariel Alcantara has kind of fallen off a cliff here recently. So I feel like he first of all, I'll start with this fight when he came in at -1,000 against Frankie Saenz and kind of got embarrassed if we're being real. Next fight beats Landrew Issa by decision, big deal. Then fights Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy wins convincingly. Then he starches Brad Pickett. This is a near retirement Brad Pickett. I don't hold that win in too much account. Then he comes in against Luke Sanders, and I went huge on Yuri Alcantara in this fight, and Luke Sanders gave him a life-changing beating. He whooped Yuri Alcantara for about 7-8 minutes there, and then Yuri was able to pull off that leg lock and get the tap there, but at what cost, man? He took a lot of damage, and I think it might have shown in his last fight against Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher, he sunk the choke in on Yuri, and Yuri quick tapped like I've never seen before, dude. He quit, if we're being honest. He tapped. He didn't give himself a chance to get out of it. I don't know. I guess his time is just over, and I feel like this is a young man's game, and I think Alejandro can 100% kind of squeak out a decision victory here, man. I think the line is off. I got it at +160. I didn't expect it to get better, but it did get better. It's +175 now. I think he's a great underdog play for this card, so I put just 1 unit on Alejandro Perez. I feel like that line is off, and he has a real good chance of winning. And I'm going to say Alejandro Perez wins via decision. So moving on here, man, my third and final play of the card. We got Merab Davishvili, -155, taking Frankie Saenz, +135. I like Merab here quite a bit, man. I put 3 units on Merab Davishvili. I'm going to butcher that last name. I'm just going to call him Merab. Put 3 units on him at -150 to win 2 units. That line has dropped. It's 155 now. I see it at -160 at most books. -175 in one spot. I think he's a real, even in his UFC debut here, I think he's a real solid spot, man. I mean, so he's going in. He trains at Serra Longo. He grapples with Aljamain Sterling every day. He strikes with the likes of Aljamain Sterling and all those guys. And in his last fight against Rafion Stotts, who's 8-0 and a real good guy in the regional scene, has some good wins for himself, he was able to starch him in 15 seconds, knocked him out with a punch in 15 seconds. Before that, he's beating decent record guys too, 8-2, man, undefeated guys. And it's good that he got those 2 losses out of the way quickly there early in his career. Didn't even get finished. He got decision though. I guess there were a big learning curve for him, man, because watching some of his early fights and then some of his newer fights, I see some improvement, and I like that a lot. You guys know I love improvements in fighters. I think this dude, his striking is obviously his best asset. He's got some punching power, and let's be real here, man. Frankie Saenz just got knocked out by old man Eddie Wineland not too long ago, and Frankie Saenz is on quite the decline. Like I mentioned just in the last fight, he was able to come out and beat Yuri Alcantara as like a minus 700 favorite there. Then he went up against Uriah Faber, got beaten there convincingly, then got knocked out by Eddie Wineland, and then just lost to Tanquinho. He just got outstruck by a jiu-jitsu guy. So, man, I don't know what to think about Frankie Saenz. And another thing, Frankie Saenz, I always say this, you can't really be that old of a guy in these really lower divisions because you have to have speed. It's so crucial at these lower weight classes. Frankie Saenz is a 37-year-old man, so I like the theme of me fading these really older, lightweight class guys like Yuri Alcantara and Frankie Saenz, these 37, 38-year-old dudes, and a low weight class. The speed's gone. I think Perez is going to be able to outvolume Alcantara, and I think Merab, he's going to be too quick and young for Frankie Saenz here. I think Frankie, obviously, that wrestling is his best tool, and I think Merab stuffs with ease here. I think grappling with Aljamain Sterling on a day-to-day basis is going to pay off. I think he stuffs. I think he outstrikes, and I think he possibly gets a knockout here. I'm confident wherever the fight goes. If Frankie Saenz gets a takedown and holds him down for a little bit, I'm not going to panic just because I know Merab is probably going to be the fresher guy after a round or two as well. I think he has the better cardio. I'm going to take the young man. I'm going to keep taking these the young men in the young man's game. I got 3 units, Merab Davishvili, minus 150 to win 2 units. And that's my card, man. So just going to roll through the rest of the fights on here, man. This is an interesting one. This is Alex Perez, minus 400, taking on Carlos John Day Thomas, plus 325. I didn't look into it a whole lot, but I guess I see why the minus 400 is a thing here. I think Carlos John Day Thomas, this is a huge step up in competition for him, man. He's not fighting these Filipino guys anymore. Alex Perez is a real tough out for anybody. He has good striking, good jiu-jitsu, and I think he probably finishes Carlos John Day Thomas here. So I'm going to say Alex Perez wins via a second round submission. Moving on to this one, man, we got Luke Cool Hand Sanders, minus 230, taking on Andre Sukumtov, minus 190, and I think this line's a little off, man. I don't think Sukumtov should be minus or plus 190 plus 200 here, man. I think he's the more technical, slick striker. I think obviously Luke Sanders is going to be going to get those takedowns, but if Andre Sukumtov is successfully able to stuff the takedowns, I think he lands the better shots over 15 minutes. Luke is a real pressuring, strong, bulky guy. I think his shots might have a little more pop behind them, which will make Andre kind of not hesitant, but make him think about what he's doing more and not be able to throw as much. So I do understand 100% why Luke Sanders is the favorite here. He should be the favorite. I just think the line's a little off. So if you want to take that shot on Sukumtov to take the better striker at plus 200, I don't hate that at all, but I'm going to stay away from it. But Luke Cool Hand Sanders is going to be my pick via, I'll say, a 29-28 split decision. So moving on, we got Liz Carmouche, minus 175, taking on Alexis Davis, plus 155. I just think Alexis Davis is kind of sloppy, man. Even that fight against Cindy Dandois. Cindy obviously is a lot worse than Alexis. She looked terrible there, but Alexis should probably do a little bit better against a girl that low level. She didn't. It was competitive at some points, and you shouldn't be having competitive fights with Cindy Dandois. Liz Carmouche, she's got strong wrestling. I feel like she should probably be able to take down Alexis Davis, grind her out, maybe even catch a submission, maybe just pull off exactly what Sarah McMahon did, land those takedowns, arm triangle, tap. I think Liz probably, even on the feet, I think Liz is the better striker here, man. And I think Liz Carmouche, even at minus 175, not a bad parlay piece, man. I don't hate that at all. I think she's the better striker. I think she can land takedowns, and I think she can be dominant on top. So I got Liz Carmouche here, and I'll say via a 30-26 decision. So moving on, we got Albert Morales, minus 110, taking on Benito Lopez, minus 110. Real interesting, man. This fight has been pick'em for a long time now, and I love these pick'em fights. It's just kind of exciting to me to see two guys just absolutely even when it comes to the betting odds. It just adds a little excitement to it, but if I had to say who I think money is going to come in on is the guy that I'm picking, I think I think Benito Lopez has this one, man. I think the UFC debutant is going to win this fight. Albert Morales, he's a real tough guy. Both these guys love to fight. This is probably my pick for fight of the night, either this or the main event, even the co-main event. But this is a great fight. We should see some nice action here. I looked at the over, which was a play I was really considering. I was considering the over. I was considering Benito. Decided to just pass on them both, but I have Benito here, man. I think the striking exchanges will be close, but I think the hole in Albert Morales' game is probably the takedown defense, and I think Benito Lopez, training at Team Alpha Male, maybe he lands some takedowns here, and that wins him rounds. I think we're going to see close rounds, but rounds that are clear for Benito. So I'm going to go with Benito 30-27 here. I think we see close striking exchanges ending with Benito takedowns. So I got Lopez, and I'll say 29-28, 29-28, 30-27 on those three scorecards there. So moving on, we got Eric Anders minus 280 taking on Marcus Perez plus 240. I think the line's just about right here, man. I think both these guys are dangerous. Let me look at the doesn't go the distance for a second, because I kind of like that, if we're being honest here. Minus 180, don't want to play that. I think the most likely outcome is Eric Anders with his explosiveness, his athleticism, his power. I think he probably gets in, hits this dude with a big shot, and puts him away early, man. I'm trying to get this shit back up, but my laptop's fucking up on me. All right, here we go. So, yeah, I do like Eric Anders, and I think Marcus, he really just he hasn't been in there with a guy quite as athletic and explosive. I mean, Eric Anders, we're talking about a guy who won the college national championship with Alabama football. He's a linebacker. I mean, we're talking about a real great athlete. And he's been knocking fools out. I like that Eric went 25 minutes with Brendan Allen in an LFA. I'm glad he got that experience under his belt going 25 minutes. But this dude, Marcus, he went 25 minutes as well with a UFC vet nonetheless. So in his last fight, he beat an 8-0 guy in LFA. He was able to choke him out in a minute, or 2 minutes, which is really impressive. 2 fights before that, he beat 2 UFC veterans in Ildemar Alcantara and Paulo Tiago. So he's proven, but I just don't think he's quite at Eric Anders' level here. I think Eric Anders goes in, knocks this fool up probably pretty early. That being said, I thought about parlaying him up, but I'm trying to stay away from parlays. I'm trying to stay away from these big lines, and I don't like him that much, but he is a solid pick for me, and I am going to say Eric Anders wins this fight via KO. Moving on to this one, man. My level of care is so low for this one, but we got Scott Holtzman minus 120 taking on Darrell Horcher plus 100. Darrell Horcher giving me, along with a lot of other people, a real sweat last time when we all went huge on him against Devin Powell, who's probably like the worst lightweight on the roster. Darrell Horcher showed that he's probably not too ahead of him, man. So I got Scott Holtzman here, and I think Scott Holtzman should probably be favored a little bit more, like minus 150, minus 160 area. Not going to bet him just because he's not that great, but I do think he's a step above Darrell Horcher. I think these guys are pretty well evenly matched, if we're being honest. I just think Holtzman's a little better and should win the striking by a little bit, should be winning these grappling exchanges by a little bit. I just think he's simply a little bit better everywhere. Then again, don't want to bet it though, because Darrell Horcher's a fucking tough dude. I think he's a lot tougher than Scott Holtzman, that's for sure. I think he might be able to maybe pull out the better cardio. Who knows? Didn't look into this fight a whole lot, if I'm being honest with you. But I'll say Scott Holtzman wins a 29-28 split decision. And I'm probably not going to touch this fight on DK because I think a finish is probably going to be low here. I doubt we see a finish. Yeah, over is to minus 245. Don't really care about that fight, if we're being honest. So moving on here, man, we got Marlon Maurice minus 150 taking on Aljamain Sterling plus 130. I think the line's just about right, actually. I do favor Marlon. I think he's a little bit cleaner on the feet. I think he's better, throws better shots, has more pop behind his punches. Aljamain Sterling, he's still coming a long way on the feet, but obviously he's a great grappler. So is Marlon Maurice. I think that kind of cancels out on the ground. I think we're going to see a 3-round striking match. Both these guys go to close split decisions all the time, but I think Marlon has the cleaner technique on the feet. I think he should probably get it done here. I'm going to say he wins via a 29-28 decision. Al just got to work on those hands, man, and not just throw those kicks. But nonetheless, it's working. He is improving. I just don't see I just don't see a victory in front of him here. And Marlon Maurice is a real tough dude, man. I mean, if we're being honest, I thought he won that Asuncao fight. Aljamain wasn't able. Both these guys lost to Rafael Asuncao. I do think Marlon did a little bit better. Just a weird fight, man. All week long, I've been saying I think this fight is going to end up being a close split decision, but I do ever so slightly favor the favorite. So I'm going to go with Marlon. I think he lands the better shots and more shots over 15 rounds. So I got Marlon 29-28. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we got Jason Knight, minus 310, taking on Gabriel Benitez, plus 255. I don't think Jason Knight should be this big of a favorite, man. I mean, minus 310 is a little too crazy, especially with the way he fights. He's kind of a crazy man in there. He does stay a little technical. I'm not saying he just goes out and just brawls for the hills or anything like that, but he is a little too loose out there. Makes some mistakes. Obviously, a real tough, proven veteran who's been in the top 10 for a long time now, Ricardo Lamas, he was able to just figure this kid out real quick and put a beat down on him. But Jason Knight, he's taken, how long is that fight? I feel like that fight was a decent while ago at this point, because if we're being honest, Jason Knight took some damage in that fight, man. So that was in July. That was only 5 months ago. I mean, maybe he's had enough time to recover. He's a young guy. He recovers quicker. And, Gabriel Benitez, man, he's a dude who has pop behind him. I think he's a real slick striker as well, and maybe he lands something on this dude. But I just think you look at Gabriel Benitez wins in the UFC, it just doesn't compare to like the level of Jason Knight. Like, we're not dealing with Sam Cecilia here. We're not dealing with Clay Collard or Humberto Brown Morrison. Got Jason Knight in front of us, a guy who's been putting together some real good wins, like Dan Hooker, Alex Caceres, all those guys. And even look at the guys that Gabriel Benitez has lost to, Andre Fili and Enrique Barzola. I would say Jason Knight is a lot better than the Enrique Barzola and Andre Filis of the world. So I definitely understand why Knight's a favorite, and even a big favorite. I just think minus 310 is a little crazy, because I feel like he could get a little too confident and loose and get caught by something, because Gabriel Benitez, make no mistake about it, he can catch somebody with something. And I think Jason, in his best interest, he's going to want to get this down to the ground. I think he has a nice little grappling advantage, but something tells me he's going to go in there and want to strike with this dude. And maybe he does strike with him, and maybe he does even outstrike him, but that's a risky equation, and I would not recommend playing Jason Knight here at the price at all. He's going to be my pick, though. So I got Jason Knight, and I'll say round 2 submission. Now, moving on to the main event here, man. I love this fight. I'm really excited for this fight. I might be more excited for this fight than I was for any of the fights these past few weeks. We got Brian Ortega minus 120 taking on Cub Swanson plus 100. So I'm going to run down Brian Ortega's record here, and I'm going to tell you how many times I have bet against this guy, because it's been a lot. So he was on the card where I first started doing this, like from a card-to-card basis, which was UFC 195. He was one of my first plays. I had him parlayed, but I think might have been Stipe against Arlovsky. But I had him against Brandao. He was losing, pulls out the 3rd-round submission. Then I took Clay Guida against Brian Ortega. I thought the price was a little crazy. There was Guida plus 200. And I was one of the only people to bet Clay Guida there, and although I didn't cash, Clay Guida didn't win the fight. He was doing pretty well, and then Ortega obviously got to him with the knee and knocked him out there. Then this last one against Renato Carneiro Moicano. I went big on Renato Carneiro there, like 3 units. I think he was up 2 rounds, would have won the fight. dove into a guillotine. You don't want to do that against Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega is one of the better BJJ guys in the division, and the striking is coming along too. Too, man. I mean, he's real dangerous on the feet. I mean, one doesn't simply just knock out Clay Guida with a knee in the third round. I mean, you got to have a lot of talent to do that. And I like how people think that the people that are picking Brian Ortega, people think they're just picking Ortega because they think he's going to survive, get to the later rounds, and finish Cub in the later rounds. I don't think that's his only way to win, man. I don't think his only way to win is going to be a late round submission. I think obviously he knows he's losing these fights up until the third round, but I think maybe this is the first fight where he actually comes out and just, does well the entire fight, not just give up rounds early on. I feel like we could easily see a 50-45 Brian Ortega situation here. I mean, obviously, he is not the better striker here. Cub Swanson is hands down the better boxer, if we're being honest. Brian Ortega, he's good on the it's kind of hard to explain, but he's real good on the feet in certain aspects, but he lacks talent in certain aspects. Like, he's good at certain things. I feel like he can land sneaky shots on Cub. Like, I feel like Cub will probably be landing a lot more strikes on him for sure. I feel like Cub's going to land, there's going to be situations where Cub lands a lot of strikes, a lot of combos on Ortega, and Ortega just eats him up and lands a big shot. I feel like Ortega is going to have the mentality of eat a couple to give one bigger one, and I feel like that's going to be the case here. I feel like Cub's going to be landing more, but Ortega is going to be landing the more devastating shots, and this is just when it comes to the striking. Now, obviously, he wants to get this onto the ground against Cub. He's got a big BJJ advantage. How is Cub's takedown defense hold up? Well, he was taken down 2 times by Artem Lobov, so that gives me all the reason to believe that Brian Ortega is going to go out there, shoot a double leg, go for a single leg, and take Cub Swanson down. I feel like that's hot lava for Cub Swanson, because if we go on to Cub Swanson's record here and look at how he loses his fights, let's take a look at it. So obviously his last loss was Max Holloway. He was submitted. Before that, Frankie Edgar, he was submitted and taken down about 100 times and held down for about 20 minutes, maybe even more than that. One loss before that, submitted by Ricardo Lamas. Just going down, man. Submitted by Jens Pulver. I know that was 100 years ago. Very first pro fight in 2004 against Shannon Gugerty. Submitted. So Cub Swanson, obviously his weak point here is the submission game, and he's dealing with arguably the best submission artist in the division here. I just feel like it's hot lava. Cub Swanson, I mean, it would obviously be in his best interest, and it would probably be in every fighter's best interest to do this, but finish the fight early so you don't have to, avoid the submissions of Brian Ortega here for 25 minutes. I just feel in a 25-minute span, that gives Brian Ortega so much time to pull something off. He's been doing it in 15 minutes. I mean, he's been losing fights and pulling off the submission in these 15-minute fights. If you give him 25 minutes, man, I feel like all he has to do is get Cub down to the ground at one time, and he could lock something in, man. And he's so dangerous down there. And maybe Cub's going to try to prove a point, get him down on the ground and out-grapple him. That wouldn't be smart. Cub just comes off of that kind of guy to me. And the reason I am going with Brian Ortega here is because Cub doesn't finish fights, man. So, I mean, he went in there against Artem, no finish. Duho Choi didn't get the finish. Kawajiri didn't get the finish. Hawkran Diaz didn't get the finish even against him. So he's beating these guys, but he's not getting the finish. So most likely, if he wins this fight against Brian Ortega, he's going to have to go the 25 minutes here, and I just think that gives Brian Ortega so much time to get it down to the ground at least once, or even land a big shot on the feet. I just feel like he's the more lethal fighter here. I feel like he has 25 minutes to get it done. He has the better cardio. I like Brian Ortega, man. I'm not going to bet it unless it gets back to a certain price I'm looking for, but I understand why he is now the favorite. So, and I see a lot of people betting on Cub. Best of luck to you guys, I guess. I mean, I have buddies on Ortega. I have people on Swanson. I don't really have a rooting interest. I guess I'm just going to root for Ortega because I'm going to be playing a lot of him in DK. I'm going to be playing a lot of both of these guys in DK, but I just want to see Ortega win this one, man, and I think he does. So I'm going to go with Brian Ortega. And I'll say he keeps the third round streak going. I got Brian Ortega via a third round. I'll say triangle. Why not? I'll say third round triangle for Brian T. City Ortega. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Just ran down the whole 13 fight card. And just to go over my bets one more time, 3 units on Dobby Ramos at minus 180 to win like 0.16 something. 1 unit on Alejandro Perez at plus 160 to win 1.60. And then 3 units on Merab Davishvili at minus 150 to win 2 units. And, follow me on Twitter. Keep updated because like I said, there's a line in Invicta I'm real intrigued by. Well, there's a fight in Invicta I'm real intrigued by, and I want to see the line because I might end up playing that too, man. So just the 3 plays. Like I said, follow me on Twitter for DraftKings updates, who I'm going to be playing. And if I had any more bets, because it could happen, man, I'm a wild man. So thank you guys all very much for watching. Comment below. Tell me who you're betting on this week. And I really want to know what you guys, how you guys are going to go about playing this card. And like the video. It takes like 2 seconds. Subscribe to the channel. These videos are never going to stop, so just subscribe so you can get those sent to your inbox and watch before the fights. I noticed a lot of people watch these after the fights. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to watch somebody else's prediction videos after the fights. It would just be weird to me, but I always get like 100 views after the fight. So if you're watching this after the fights, shout out to you. Comment below. Tell me why you're watching this after the fights. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Enjoy the fights this weekend.